McLellan and Shannon back with you, and we are joined by the head coach of the LA Kings. Todd McLellan is with us. One of those times a year, huh? Where you kind of have to really focus on what you're doing and what your team is doing. You've got a run to the playoffs, but I don't know if you feel comfortable yet with being in, but you're been in good shape just about all year.
It is that time of year, and our team is comfortable with the way we're playing right now, but we're certainly not comfortable in acknowledging or confirming that we've solidified that playoff spot, which actually makes me as a coach feel good because we can keep them, we have their attention and we can keep their attention right now. But the team has played a good brand of hockey lately. We played playoff style where it's tight checking and somewhat low scoring, which favors us. And right now we're in a good spot. We'd like to get healthy like everybody else in the league, but I don't know if that ever happens completely for anybody.
How do you manage rest at this time of year when you're trying to get your team healthy?
It's a great question. I've been asking numerous coaches or people from coaching staffs as they come through what they've been doing. And out west, obviously, our travel's a little bit different than the Eastern teams, and the extended road trips can take its toll. But right now we have three types of days. We have an off day, we have a clean out day, and we have a practice day. And off day is obviously the obvious one. Practice day is pretty straightforward. Those are probably 30 minutes max right now, but it gets quite competitive, and you have the luxury of wearing the players out a little bit in that case. But the clean out days become the popular one where maybe 3 drills, flow drills, just to get the legs feeling good again, have a sense of pace and good execution, and get ready for the next day. So it's been a long year already, and teams want to play for quite a while. And there's a lot of, I don't want to use the word load management because that's a basketball term, but there's a lot of fatigue management, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was going to ask you about that because basketball, and what has happened in basketball is guys are given days off. They're given games off. It's become more and more popular. It seems like there's a cycle that each team goes through. Have you done any of that with the Kings?
We have not at this point, but I think what may happen as you get closer to those last 2 or 3 regular season games, if you're fortunate enough to be in the playoffs and perhaps have a position solidified where you can't move up or down or home ice or anything like that. There are some players that have given us everything they have, but don't get to play a lot.
Yeah,
they're the 5th line player or the 7th defenseman, in and out, and we'd like to keep them sharp and keep them involved in the game. So there may be that situation very, very late in the season, but not certainly during the season or at this point.
Boy, I'd like to be a fly on the wall after the morning skate when you walk up to Drew Doughty and say, "Hey, Drew, I think you should take tonight off." I don't think that conversation would last very long, would it?
No, and you know what? The good thing in our sport, but also in our locker room, especially, that's not a comfortable conversation you have with anybody, and that's a good thing for our sport and for the fans, because they pay to watch the best players play on a nightly basis, and they deserve to see that. And I think our team, our league, and our group of hockey people do a good job of presenting that to the fans.
But so you don't get an extended period off. It seems like there's games all the time. And I wonder how you feel about that. I mean, you don't get much practice time during the course of the season.
No, we don't. And, practices have changed over the years. You used to have an hour-and-a-half slot, and you used all the hour-and-a-half up.
Yeah,
I think now that the teams have hired experts as far as sleep patterns and food intake and nutrition, and call it the sports science department, if you will. We rely a lot on their expertise. They give us guidance on how much the group should skate or shouldn't skate. 82 games is a lot of hockey.
Yep.
You throw in 7 or 8 exhibition games, trips to Europe to start, depending on where you are on the map, it makes it tougher. And I hear there's talk of 84. In my own personal opinion, I think 82 is fine. But I also understand how the business part of the game works. And if we go to 84, great. But I think the players are taxed already to the max, and it's hard for them to stay healthy. It's hard for us as coaches to keep expectations high when you play that many games.
How many times do you go to the guys and say, listen, we're in New York or Boston or somewhere in the East, and say, we're thinking of staying over. Would you rather stay over or go home? Because that's a long flight. It's overnight. The ripple effect of the sleep when you get home is difficult. Do you do that a lot? Do you stay over?
Well, we do it, not a lot, but we do it. And I guess with me answering the question that way, we'd like our players to be part of the solution. We want them to participate. If we dictate what we're doing all the time, we tend to have an unhappy group. If they participate in the decision process, well, then most of it's on them. They decided that that's what they want to do. But when we're playing in New York, Boston, whatever it might be, getting across the country is a 6-hour flight after a game, but we do gain 3 hours. So that's the one advantage of going from east to west. We can be landing by 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And if that's the case, the players would rather have their full day off at home with their families in their own bed. They don't want to spend it flying 6 hours across the country. So a lot of our players will choose to fly after the game. We will go to the science department that we have and ask them what's best. And we kind of have a 2 to 2:30 in the morning cutoff time. If it's any later than that, we likely stay.
I'm one of those guys who can't sleep on an airplane. I never have been able to, no matter how long the flight, whether it's a 5-hour flight, 6-hour flight, 3-hour flight, whatever. Do you monitor that within your players?
No, we ask them to do enough. For me to go back there and treat them like they are a midget or a bantam team would be, I think, a grave mistake on my behalf and our team's behalf. They're adults. I go back there, I can see Alex Edler. He's going home to 2 or 3 kids that have activities the next day. He's trying to get to sleep, and there's others that are playing cards or watching movies. I think the bodies are so revved up after a game, it's hard for them to sleep to begin with.
Sure.
So for me to go back there and say lights out in 15 minutes, I may not make it back to the front of the plane. So we let them make good decisions on their own. If we see it being a problem or there's an issue, we certainly would jump in, but our group doesn't have that.
What about the coach? Do you sleep on the plane?
Yeah, I do. I guess I'm one that can sleep on the plane, but I get all my work done and then close my eyes and early the next morning.
So last September, when camp started, your 2 goalies were Cal Peterson and John Quick. Neither is on your roster now. Would that have been something you could have predicted at this point?
Not one bit. We didn't go into the season thinking that would or could happen. But obviously, we're living proof that things change. Things don't go as planned, and you better be able to react and pursue other opportunities. Rob Blake did do that, and I hope it works out well for everybody. Of course, I'm thinking about Jonathan Quick. Not an easy situation for him, but since he's arrived in Vegas, he's played very well and looks very confident there. I think they'll be really happy with his performance. Our 2 guys have done a really good job. Phoenix Copley arriving halfway through the season and being able to run off the record that he's run off has been actually quite incredible. It's been a really good story, and it's been a motivator for us. Korpisalo gives us some playoff experience, and since he's arrived, he's played a very calm game, a very sharp game, and we feel fortunate to have both of them right now. Just
to follow up on the Quick situation, how difficult was that flight home? Because that was after our game in Winnipeg, where you guys came back and won, and next thing you know, and John has to fly home with the club. How tough was that?
In hindsight, at the moment, it was very, very difficult. The game had ended, and Rob Blake did not want this to come out the way it came out. But the world that we live in, there are no secrets. There's leaks everywhere for whatever reason. It's unacceptable because there's families and kids and wives and parents that are affected by these things that happen. And I get it. It's a business and we're supposed to be able to do these things, but it's wrong. And for me, I hold the media world a little bit accountable for that. I get it. You gotta be the first one to release something. But for God's sakes, take into consideration somebody's family for a second. And if it would have come out the next morning where we could have actually sat down with him, we would have been fine. And although it was somebody in the media that got it from somewhere that felt they had to let it out at 11 o'clock at night. Back to your question, in regards to the flight, it wasn't comfortable to begin with, I don't think, for anybody. But the flight was a good flight for the group to stay together. They got to play cards. They had a few beers, I'm sure, on the plane. They told stories, and maybe that was the best thing for the group as a whole, was to do it then. And when everybody was together, there was no, hey, I got to go home right now. You're stuck on the plane and you do what you have to do. So I feel for the way it happened, but in hindsight, maybe it was okay that that plane ride existed.